of the Groovy podcast. My name is Ken Kousen, podcasting from or screencasting from Marlborough, Connecticut, and I'm joined as always by
Baruch Sadagurski, podcasting, blogcasting, videocasting, whatever it's called, from Sunnyvale, California. Sunnyvale, California
uh,
today.
we are not sunny at all. We've got very nasty weather coming in, and it's cold and freezing rain, and the barometric pressure has dropped to hurricane levels. Even though I don't think we're going to get a big storm, it's just very strange. Yeah,
Ouch.
I'd
All right.
rather be where you are, definitely.
Yeah, no, I heard Florida is nice in the winter.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that stuff. You were out last week. Were you at J Focus? Where were you? You've been
And no,
all over the place.
we didn't. Unfortunately, we didn't go to J Focus because we have a very big release for JFrog coming up, the JFrog platform, and we were busy just doing stuff around that. So we had
But
to
you've been
skip
traveling all
JFocus.
over, right?
No, not recently. I mean, I've been on the ground for like 2 weeks.
Well, we're not making a very convincing case for why this podcast is quite so late. Then, see, I was trying to give you an
Well,
open.
no, but I mean, it was a holidays, and then we went to a company offsite in Cancun. So that
Yeah,
took a lot of energy,
yeah, I
and
was
I
in
had to
Cancun as
recover.
well. A different week than you were, but I was down there, I think.
Yes, yeah. So you know what it takes. It's a lot of effort. I had to recover. It's not like you go to a conference and then you come back full of energy. After Cancun, you have to take like at least 3 weeks to recover.
The words first world problems are coming to mind here. I just don't think we're going to be convincing anybody that this is a reason. But yes, we did hit the holidays. But what we were hoping to do is we were hoping to have a podcast earlier because the call for papers, of course, for Greach is over. But Greach conference, we definitely want to talk about.
Yeah.
There's still, yeah.
No,
So
frankly, it's all on me because I was sick. That's why we missed the podcast before the CFP was over. So yeah,
uh,
I take the blame.
I'll go with that. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, no, I was. It was very nasty.
But
So yeah, I couldn't do it.
more importantly, let's make sure Sergio's happy by talking about the Greach conference coming up, and Greach is in. Let's see, where's I was opening the actual page for it. Let me open the link in a separate tab here, and
Conferences here. It's March 26 to 28.
in Madrid, right?
Yes.
And I'm looking at the. Actually, I don't see the schedule. I see the speakers. Oh, agenda, of course. There it is. Exactly where you'd expect. And it looks excellent as always. Oh, Trisha G's going to be there.
Mm.
Sergio's giving a keynote. Gee, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that. How about you?
We hope for a mention for the of the Groovy podcast.
Geez, not in a good way. Of course,
Well,
actually, I
there is no
remember.
such thing as bad publicity, and second, why would anyone do it in a good way? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
look
can
at us.
understand why you would say that, but let's move on. I do remember Sergio tweeting. I think it was Sergio tweeted about Marcin Marcin Erdmann. Or is
Yeah,
it him or someone else? The head of the Jeb project is going to be giving a workshop on browser automation there, which that sounds awesome. I would love to go to that.
yeah.
So I mean,
So
there's just
here are I can see two pre-conference workshops.
yeah, but I
It's
mean,
actually
I
the
really.
same
Oh, and the head of the
conference
Spock
workshop.
framework, the new head of the Spock framework, right? Leonard, okay, I'm going to try this. Brunings is how I would guess it's pronounced. Brunings, something like that.
Brunings. Yeah,
I
looks
have
like
my
Brunings.
old schoolboy German. I don't know a lot, but it's great to see Spock moving on. I'm really looking forward to when Spock is built on top of JUnit 5 rather than 4, and we have that sort of integration because that is starting to catch on throughout the industry. Of course, other people will be there. Andrei Salmire will be there. Vladimir Oranyi. I mentioned Trisha, Ivan Lopez, of course. Um, and Simon Stepniak, who's going to feature very prominently in this episode of the Groovy podcast, especially in the show notes, because he's been extremely active as well. Oh, Ralph Mueller will be there also talking about Jeb and ASCII Doc.
Yeah, and yeah,
Alvaro Sanchez
and
Marshall.
Chuck Cronia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So all the people, a lot of people we know and several people we don't. Jakob Mikkelsen will be there as well.
Hmm.
It looks like it's a really good, what do you call it? I suppose a boutique conference is how Sergio tends to refer to it. And I'm afraid I won't be there, unfortunately, but I really was tempted. I mean, it just seemed like a lot to travel from the US to there on my own
Yeah,
dime. But I thought about it. I really
I
did.
think it makes a lot of sense for the European folks just because they are so close that
Yeah.
they shouldn't miss it.
I also found it very entertaining and very illustrative of the Groovy community that Sergio pointed out that other communities sometimes compete against each other, whereas on this particular case, Great Conf, who we also have to talk about, is actually helping to sponsor Reach,
Hmm.
which is wonderful. So that's great to hear as well. So we will talk more about Greach as it gets closer, and we'll, when people start putting up slides or video or whatever, we'll mention that. In the meantime, there is 1 week left on the call for papers for GreatConf, which is joined with this JDK conference. Did you know anything about the JDK conference?
I have no idea, but I have to say that I'm really happy that they find a way to make those connections and keep the conference afloat.
Yes.
So those are definitely good news. I never heard about JDKIO, but it's good that it's there.
Well, that conference, for those who are not aware, is the June 2nd through 4th in Copenhagen. Um, you don't really need much of an excuse to go to Copenhagen. It's always a good place to visit. And of course, that's one of the best run conferences you'll ever attend. It's very friendly for speakers too. So if you get a chance to speak
Beer,
there, I highly recommend it.
beer,
Oh, the beer too. Don't they make their own specialty Great Conf
absolutely,
beer as well? Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's one of the things you
yes.
missing. Yes.
And this is the 12th year in a row that this conference is run, which is an achievement by itself.
It's funny you should mention 12th year because I don't have a special element for it in the show notes, but it was tweeted and it is true that this is also the 12-year anniversary of the version 1.0 of the Grails framework. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that was all. It was all calculated and set up this way. Yes.
Now, well, let me ask you, what's the first version of Grails you tried out? Do you remember?
Uh, it was pretty advanced. I think it was probably like 5 years ago, so it wasn't like that fresh.
Okay. Well,
It wasn't like 1.0. I'm a newbie.
my first encounter with Grails was in 2007, actually. I had tried, actually, it was 2005 was when Ruby on Rails just took off. It was late 2005, early 2006. And
Uh
I
huh.
was fascinated by the idea of all that power with that much simplicity. So I tried to learn Ruby on Rails and I kept getting hung up on Ruby. I think I could learn it now. I think I understand the concepts and the principles and everything well enough now. But at the time, Ruby was too big a leap for me as a Java developer. And I liked Rails, but it wasn't friendly. I mean, it was very much of a niche product. I really believe that. And I think it's still a niche product, although it's very good niche product. It's very well done. But at any rate, a year later, I was at a user group meeting in Philadelphia on the Spring Framework, interestingly enough. And I attended a talk by someone who gave a presentation on Grails. That was the first time I'd ever seen Grails. And of course, since it was built directly on Spring at the time, it was made sense to have it at a Spring meetup. And I was just captivated. Since I knew the principles from Ruby on Rails and I was familiar with both Spring and Hibernate in the Java ecosystem, I was basically the target audience. And I started using Grails probably in 2008. So I think my first experiments were at version 0.4, maybe 0.7, something like that. InfoQ had that little free book on getting started with Grails, that sort of thing. And I downloaded and worked with that. And then Graham came out with his first definitive guide to Grails, which then later was released with version 1.0. So I've been in this community not since the beginning, but reasonably close, certainly earlier than version 1. you know,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I spent years working with Grails. I just haven't had a lot of cause to work on the newer features. You know, I mean, I don't do a lot of the multi-tenant sort of thing in databases. I don't do a lot of the newer features on there. But you know, Grails right now, from what I understand, is version 4.1, I believe, or is it 4.0.1? Let me just check the version real quick here. So at Grails.org, oh, it's 4.0.1, right? And it's got everything now, you know, and the version 4 of Grails has incorporated into it a lot of the improvements of the underlying infrastructure that came from Micronaut as well. So I
Yeah,
hope it's
and
still a going concern.
I have to say that this path of here it is something nice, but it's in language that I'm not sure I want to learn right now. Is true for a lot of frameworks and a lot of people. Me personally, I had the same experience both with Grails and with Ratpack, by the way.
Mm.
Right, because that's the same idea, right? You wanna take what was it called, Sinatra, right? But you don't want to do Ruby, and here's Ratpack, and it's in Groovy, so it feels like an improved Java, and you get all the benefits.
Well, you remember why Rat Pack was named Rat Pack?
Yeah, because of Sinatra.
Yeah, because the Ruby community had Sinatra, and it was just such a
Yeah,
perfect generalization. I still love that.
exactly.
We
Yeah,
should
no,
mention, of
that
course,
was.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
inspired. We should mention both of those things. First of all, that Rat Pack just had a release recently to go to 1.7.6, interestingly enough. And the other one I was going to mention was Micronaut, of course, is at 1.3 now. So Micronauts had a release recently, and again, those improvements and the mechanisms there all get wrapped into Grails eventually. Uh, Grails, of course, led me to Groovy. Groovy was such a natural move from Java. I basically, that was my first love. I fell in love with Groovy, and I still use it whenever I can. I just don't get as many opportunities as I used to. But and of course, did you see? By the way, there was a tweet earlier today, incidentally, of someone trying to put down a comparison of Micronaut versus the Quarkus framework, that
Hmm.
microservices framework that came out of Red Hat, and
Yes.
it was interesting that was saying, okay, here are the pros and cons, and they're perfectly equal. And then he gives this criticism about performance of all things, saying the performance was significantly slower under Micronaut than it was under uh, Quarkus. And of course, that didn't take long at all for the Micronaut people to respond to go, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, you're doing it wrong. You know, and here's the reason, and it's really slower. Is we're talking milliseconds here. We're not talking a significant difference and everything. It's just very interesting that they're really on the ball. They jumped right on that, which was great. Now, of course, I personally would much prefer to do Micronaut than to dive into Quarkus. And Quarkus is pretty much restricted to. Um, Actually, I think they're not restricted to Java anymore. Don't they also do Scala or something? I think so.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Micronaut does Java and Groovy. And who's got the over under for how many minutes are we into the podcast when we first mentioned Kotlin?
Oh no, I'm coming hard at you this time. I mean, I have a lot. We need to talk about that.
Well, it's Jenn Strater who sets the over under on that. I think. I think it
Right,
should be
right,
her.
right. So no,
So
we're good. We are like what?
and somehow
Let me
she
check
wins
the
it every
timing.
time. She gets it right too. So anyway, anyway, so there's your release situation. We've got Rat Pack with its latest version and Micronaut. Speaking of releases,
13,
Groovy. Oh, sorry.
30. Just saying. 13 minutes, 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. So there for
Yep.
those keeping score at home, exactly. Uh, so the Groovy situation is building up to the big release. Right now, they did release a couple of point releases. 2.5.9 is out now, and of course they even put in 2.4.18. That's upgraded now. But we are in the home stretch for Groovy 3. Groovy 3.0.0 is currently on release candidate 2, and I seem to remember Paul King tweeting that that's going to be the last release candidate, that the next
Hmm.
release will be the final version of 3.0.0. So we
Yep.
have that to look forward to. He also seemed to imply that the question was it's a matter of weeks, but I don't want, I certainly have no business holding anybody to deadlines. My histoy with that is not so
uh,
great.
yeah.
Now, of
So
course, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I wanted to talk about Micronaut for a second and
Oh,
tie it
sure.
back to the conferences. DevNexus is coming up
Right.
in 2 weeks,
Right.
less than 2 weeks. What? Yeah, 2 weeks. I don't
It's
remember.
it, it's
And there
it
is
starts 2 weeks from Wednesday. I've got a Kotlin workshop all day and then more later.
right. Yeah. No, we'll get to your content as
Oh
well
God.
very soon. But yeah, Micronaut.
Yeah.
So Jeff Scott Brown is going to be there,
Right.
and he's going to talk about Micronaut, and Zachary Klein is going to talk about Micronaut as well. So DevNexus, although not strictly like a Groovy Grails Micronaut conference, but definitely have a content related to that as well. And also Todd Sharp is going to deliver another talk about Micronaut. So it's
Oh.
a lot of content, and you are going to be there. Not talking about Micronaut, not talking about Grails, not talking about Groovy, talking about
Oh, something. Yeah, it'll be Kotlin. Right.
a
I sh-
lot, a
I
lot
should
of
have put in a
Kotlin, a lot of
proposal for
Kotlin.
Groovy. You're right. I should have put something in for Groovy or for Grails or for both. And next time I will, next year, hopefully. But the deadline just about slipped past me, and I do kind of have a book to sell. So I went, okay, I'll do this, you know, so we can see if that works. But yes, I don't know if there are any other Groovy or Grails related talks at DevNexus. That conference is going
No,
great.
unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. So we have the three Micronaut talks. We have, and that's pretty much it for Groovy kind of related. There
Nothing
is some
Gradle
Kotlin
either
as well. So there is no, there is your Kotlin workshop, and then there is your Kotlin talk,
on
and
Friday. Yeah,
also a couple of talks from JetBrains. But at least they have good excuse.
yeah, yeah.
You
Right.
not really,
At least they
right?
do. Yeah.
So it's basically JetBrains and you talking about Kotlin. So
Oh boy. Last
yeah,
year I did an
yeah,
Android one as well. I could have proposed that, but even that would have been Kotlin and not Groovy this time. So you know how it is. Yeah, we'll have to
yeah.
see
So
if we can fix this problem.
completely to the dark side. I hear you. Okay, okay.
Well, they have cookies. You know how it is. So, uh, any rate, moving on. I was mentioning how Groovy 3 is just about released. And as a nice tie into that, where's the article? There's an InfoQ article that was just released. Let me just open that up real quick, entitled Groovy 3 adds new Java like features. And this was by Deepak Vora. I don't know him. Do you know that person?
Frankly, I don't.
I clicked on his name. There's no summary. There's no picture. I'm guessing that Deepak is male. That sounds like a male name, but I've been wrong about Indian names before, but I'm pretty sure that is one. But if you just look at it, the key takeaways, of course, they talk about the Groovy 3 features that include the new Java syntax in there. They also have all this time a do while loop and the enhanced for loop and the automatic resource management, meaning they've got try with resources in now, and the additional operators like the Elvis assignment and a few others. So it's funny. I wrote an article for Groovy 3 back in Java Magazine probably a year ago. Um, so I'm somewhat familiar with these things, although I don't really use beta software that often, but I played with it a long time ago and everything worked. Non-static interclass instantiation too, and default methods and interfaces and the
Yeah,
knock in.
it
Yeah.
looks like they closed most of the gap that
Oh,
was open through the years with Java syntax.
oh, here's his
I mean,
blurb. It's at the bottom of the article.
yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sun
No, but
certified.
it's not
Yeah,
very descriptive as well. So and looks outdated to me. Sun certified Java programmer. I don't know.
he's got a bunch of books on Docker. Okay,
Yes.
which by the way, that's another nice segue because also in the show notes we have a link to. Let's see, where was it? The ability to put Groovy in a Docker image by someone named Manfred, and I'm guessing it's pronounced Reem, Riem.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see where that wound up. Oh yeah, so it's if you click on that, it takes you to the Docker hub, where he's got a Docker image that already is set up to work with Groovy. I can't tell from the docs exactly which version of Groovy it is from here, but hey, it's nice to have a Docker image of it.
Yes.
Yeah, so not much else to say. That came up a couple of weeks ago. There's a source repo at GitHub, and that probably states the version of Groovy, but it's updated to 2.5.7. So that's about as current as you can get. I mean, we're not quite 2.5.9, but I mean, I hardly think that's going to make much of a difference for anybody. So very good. So another person that don't normally hear from that has done something to help out the Groovy community. So that's excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that is also like an interesting one. Let's say it's like a year old, so I'm not sure how it how we are only speak about it today. That's the Groovy example for Confluent Cloud Client.
Right.
But it's been there since February last year, so it's like literally almost a year. And this one is contributed by Victor Gamov,
Oh, really? I didn't
my
notice that.
yes, my dear
Oh,
friend and partner in crime on all
yeah.
kind of vendors, including, by the way, the DevRel radio that looks dead, but it's not. Monday, we are going to record a new episode of DevRel Radio. So, yep. If anyone want to join, we'll probably YouTube stream it on YouTube as well. So keep an eye open for that.
Well, that the example you're talking about on the Confluent Cloud Client, I saw that tweeted by the Apache Groovy Twitter feed just a month ago or something. So I didn't
Yeah.
didn't know it had been there a long time, but it is available, and it says it's a Groovy version of the Java producer consumer mechanism with the Kafka Streams API. So for
Hmm.
people who are interested in that, that's good that that's aware too. I didn't realize that our friend was connected to that in any way. Now, by the way, I've already made one mistake so far, other than showing up on the podcast at all, right? But uh, other than that, Groovy 300 is on release candidate 3. Sorry about that, not 2. And if I go to the change log, I don't see a date on it. But at any rate, it's RC3, and that's the one will be the last
Yeah,
one.
I thought it's three because two
Yeah.
was like a very long time ago,
Yeah, sorry about
right?
that. I misread it. So at any rate, there's that. The Rat Pack
Yeah.
version.
So
Oh,
we need to update the show notes because show notes actually say two, and the
yeah.
link goes to two. So I'll
Well,
update it to three.
that's the link I saw in the. I mean, remember, we're relying on other people to do our work for us,
Of course, yeah.
and what I tend to rely on
Yeah,
is
and when they fail, it looks like it's our fault, but it's actually not our fault. We didn't do anything. It's theirs.
well, it's partly our fault, but at any rate, there are a couple of people I'm relying on to do the work for us. One is the Apache Groovy Twitter feed. I still haven't found out
Thank
who
you to the
actually.
Apache Groovy Twitter feed. Do we know who that is? We don't know who that
I
is.
still don't know who that is, but that's the one
Yeah.
who put up the link to RC2. I thought there was RC3, and it wasn't until I went to the actual download page that I saw. Oh, okay, it is.
Now the show notes are actually fixed.
Oh, you did? Did you
Yep.
push the changes? I'll refresh my
Yep.
page here.
Yep.
Oh, well, you're all right, man. I
Magic.
don't care what they all say about you. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So, in addition to that, relying on other people to do our work, well, a lot of the work was done this time by our increasingly good friend Simon Stepniak. Now, I
Yes.
contacted him on Twitter, and he definitely is interested in appearing on the podcast, and I'm interested in having him on the podcast. It's the normal scheduling issues with and not even his fault. It's just been the two of us, I guess. But what's he been doing in the meantime? He's put together some YouTube videos too. Did you know he was making those short little nice YouTube videos?
Yeah, yeah. So they look
Yeah.
very very groovy,
Yeah.
and it's good. I mean, it's a very very good proper use of the medium, and a
Right.
lot of people like to watch those and learn something in a very short period of time. It's been popular in even in our industry. There is one on Go, right, and there are a lot of popular ones. So it was I'm glad to see that someone actually does it for Groovy, obviously. It's
Well,
just
his channel is called E. Print Stack Trace of all things, and the two videos that I added to the show notes, or that we added to the show notes, are the one on Groovy regular expressions and one on building an HTTP application in a single .groovy file with Ratpack, which of course that was always the original selling point of Ratpack in the first place. Say, hey, look what you can do, which is kind of cool. Um,
yeah.
I
So
just
go
realized
there, subscribe to the channel,
I
turn
just
on
did.
notifications. Every time you'll have a video, you'll have the notification, and you will spend like what, like under 10 minutes to learn something new.
And I clicked on the
Now you're
bell.
going to spend an hour listening to us without any profit. Instead, you can see like 6 videos by Stefan with actually good stuff.
That would
So
no doubt be a better use of their time. I got to agree with
of
that.
course,
So,
of course.
okay. So the other thing that again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. The other thing that Simon did is he put up a blog post, which he called 3 groovy string methods that will make your life groovier. And I was going to actually tell you what's in there. And I thought, wait a minute, if he's calling it that, then if I mention the names of the methods, that would be a spoiler, wouldn't it? And I shouldn't put in.
Yes, don't do that. Yeah, let's people
Yeah.
let's keep the suspense. I
Although
mean, there are
he
so
actually,
many
one of the methods he
options.
mentioned, did you see the silly tweet earlier today from the Java people saying, oh, here's how to print hello world or hello 10 times or something like that. And they actually wrote a little loop and everything. And then the Groovy people immediately jumped in and went, dude, print line, and they did it. I like one of them was the 10 dot times with the closure, print Groovy. And then
Yes.
somebody else said, wait a minute, you're doing it, you're making it hard. All you have to do is put in a Groovy string and put in name or Groovy or whatever, and a \n, and then just times 10, because the overloaded operator will repeat 10 times and just wrap that in a print line. But I don't think anybody's tweeted that exact one. And if nobody does, I'll have to put something in there on that.
Yeah, the beauty of 3 dot times or 10 dot times that it's very expressive.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
actually
no, it
read it
can't be
like
10
three
dot times.
times.
It's not 10 dot times, it's string times 10. There is
Yeah,
no yeah, because I mean that's when I teach Groovy operator overloading, I point out there's no multiply method in integer that takes a string. There's a multiply method in string that takes a number. So you got to go left to right. The string times 10 will work, not the other way around. So I know that's silly, but at any rate, I've been through that one. So at any rate, thank you, Simon. And I won't imply that
no, no.
that
I meant the method times on the integer.
So I knew what you meant. Well, it's not on the integer. There is no method on
There is.
integer call. There's a times method that doesn't take a string. No,
It
it's the
takes
other
a
way
closure.
around.
It takes a closure.
That's different. Yeah, okay. But the one I'm talking about is the
No, but
times
that's
operator.
yes. But what
The
I
multiple.
said
I'm
is
looking
the
at the.
method.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm talking about the multiply method. Okay.
yes, I
The,
know. But
the
the
multiply
times,
method.
the
Yeah.
the times method is expressive because it actually says times.
Yes, that's correct. I like
That's
the
what I
operator
meant.
overloading because it would be even shorter. So, but no, I know what you're saying, and I understand it.
It's
I
not
didn't get it at
about it's
first.
not about the length. It's about the expressiveness.
It's gonna be a long podcast, isn't it? I could just see that. You're already giving me a hard time about Kotlin. By the way, I did something Groovy related myself, something nice this time, right?
What?
Yeah. See, there's these books that come out from O'Reilly called 97 Things Every Developer Should Know, or every Java programmer should know, or every
Yes.
DevOps person should know, whatever the heck they are. And a year ago, they were asking for people to contribute to their 97 things every Java developer should know. And I'm sitting there going, I don't, a million things you should know. And there's lots of people are going to contribute to that. And I was busy on an unrelated book that shall go unnamed at the moment. And therefore I didn't get to it. And then Trisha G of all people came out and said, hey, we're looking for people to contribute. And I thought, well, all right, I'll that's convincing. So I said, can I put something Groovy related in a Java book? And they said, sure. And even though I don't like Medium, okay, and they were doing everything on the blog platform Medium, which I find annoying, and there's no easy way to put in source code, and they they keep blocking me from everything when because I'm not willing to pay for it, you know. But regardless, I wrote a blog post on Medium for that book called "Make Your Java Groovier," you know. So I put that
Yes.
in there, and I figured actually make your Java groovy. I figured what I'd do is I wasn't going to pay any attention to their length limitations or any restrictions. I was going to write what I wanted to write, figuring if they rejected it, which would be fine, then I'd go add it to my own blog post. And then lo and behold,
Yes.
they accepted it.
Yes, and it's now in this. Okay, I think my video just died.
Yeah, mine's still working. So
Yeah,
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 your
no, it's just
videos.
mine. No, no, it's fine.
You got to
Yeah,
get that.
so
Any rate, what I'm trying to find out, and I tried to find out today before the podcast, was whether this post will be included in the print book. And the answer was, we're still trying to figure that out, but probably, and we'll find out. Which is, I mean, there's no benefit to me to that because there's no royalties or anything on that. But hey, it'd be nice to get a groovy recommendation inside a Java book. So there's that. You really are
yeah, no,
struggling with
that
that video.
yeah, no, that's like my fancy video equipment doesn't work. Okay,
Oh, there it
never
came
mind.
back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
So
tried
yeah,
banging on this, you know, you try banging on the keyboard. I usually find that helps.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the 1907 things. There is an entry about making your Java groovier, and that's I think can replace like 30 other advices in the book, at least. And yep, yep, here it is
So
in the show notes.
so if you're still going to give me a hard time about Kotlin, at
No,
least I
no,
did
yeah, that's
something, you
yeah,
know.
no. I mean, now you're acquitted for this episode,
Oh,
all the way
sure.
to the end of this episode.
Yeah, all the way to the end of this episode. The other conference, by the way, that we wanted to mention was I like to call it VenCon. It's a conference hosted by Venkat Subramaniam. Now, for the people, in case there's anybody who listens to this podcast who's not familiar with Venkat, I know that's unlikely. But Venkat is something of a legend, partly for his ability to present and partly for his sheer endurance. He basically, in terms of frequent flyer miles, vastly exceeds either of us probably put together every
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
Yeah, we
pretty much.
figured out last year he traveled basically to the moon and most of the way back, just not quite, you know, but most of the way. Any rate, at UberConf, you know, which is hosted by the No Fluff people every year, last year and the year before, I think they had a Venkat track. He gave a talk in every possible slot at UberConf. So you could just follow
Hmm.
Venkat. Well, this
Hmm.
year he's got a conference that he's calling Dev.next. But as I say, I like to call it VenCon, you know. And the reason I bring it up is that he's going to have some of the OCI people there talking about Micronaut and others. In fact, Graham Roche will be there. So I thought that was worth
Yeah,
mentioning.
so
You know,
there is a pretty big section on Groovy Grills and Micronaut as opposite to, for example, the Nexus. And Venkat is going to talk, Graham is going to talk, Jeff is going to talk.
right?
Who else? Eric Hendelson is going to talk. Todd Sharp that will talk about Micronaut in the Nexus also going to be there. There is a lot of content around Groovy Grace and Macronaut at
Yeah.
the next. They're
So I
like a
did.
whole track. So that's another for people who cannot attend the European conferences, Greach and Great Conf. This is a very very good conference to be in.
Now it actually conflicts. Some of the days overlap with Greach. It's March 24th through 27th.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, but that's so far away that it'll probably it's anyway targeted for different audience, so that should work.
yeah, right. So
Yep.
I did think it was worth adding to our conference list because again, there's a nice groovy Micronaut, you know, Grails. Actually, there's a track, as you say, called Groovy Grails and Micronaut. So
Exactly.
Jeff Brown doing Groovy for Java developers. Look at that. And James Clee will be there, of course, and Eric Helgeson. Who else is in that? Todd Sharp. I don't know Todd as well. I know of him pretty well. So, any rate, it's
I guess
nice to
we will
see
be
all that.
able to meet him in person in the Nexus.
Oh, good, because I've seen the name many times, you know, and I just don't know him personally that way. So that's good. Okay, so I did want to add that to our conference list. Now, anything else in here? let's see. Oh, did you see that little uh, gist basically, which was it was, what did he call it? He called it Groovy PB copy. If you ever work on a Mac, then the command PB copy is a way to copy text from the command line into the uh, what do you call it? The
The clipboard.
Thank you. Yeah, the clipboard. So he wrote a little gist basically to do that using Groovy, using a scanner and a list and all that stuff. So, any rate, it's a little thing, and I don't know that it'll directly impact that many people, but it just seemed nice it's always nice to see people making something, a Groovy contribution, especially if they're not normally associated with the Groovy community. That was Edgar Rios Navarro. So again, I don't know him, but that's nice to see also.
Yep.
Anything else?
So yeah,
Oh,
so we spoke about the community news. We spoke about the conferences. Couple of projects that look for your help on Open Collective, and that's the
oh, of
Apache
course,
Groovy
right.
itself,
Yes,
and also
SDK man, yeah.
and SDK man. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I sponsor both of those, the SDK Man and the Friends of Apache Groovy on the Open Collective, as you say there. Oh, I missed the one about Mr. Hockey had a new article. Mr. Hockey's been
Ah,
presenting lots of new things, but in a wide variety of topics. But his Groovy related one was transforming elements while flattening. So that looked interesting too. And it's always nice to
and
see.
that's like that requires no introduction, right? The Groovy
Yeah,
Goodness series and everything that he does is obviously yet another way to spend a very little time very effectively, as opposite to
there's been a
other
couple of
things.
there's also been a couple of issues of the Groovy Calamari, I believe, but and a lot of those have been Breach focused, as I think, which makes perfect sense, of course. Um,
Yep.
yeah, GreechConf tickets and training days on Micronaut and AWS and workshop days and stuff. So he's been doing a lot of stuff with that, although he did talk about Elvis and Safe Reference and a few others. So always want to mention that too, the Groovy Calamari. So it's nice to see that. I think that's about all I have, though. How about you? Do you have anything else?
No, I mean that was. I think that's a good catch up for everything we missed. And yeah, there are some good stuff to read, good stuff to watch, good conferences to go. I think
I
we're
will
all
have
set.
some books to give away at Dev Nexus, my Kotlin cookbook. You can't have one, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean, well,
you can realize
you were
that I won't even ask for one.
well, you would have, but man, you just keep giving me a hard time about this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I will have some
What
there.
about the new book, by the way? What's going on with that?
Another book. I'm actually working on a book called Managing Your Manager now. Uh, that'll be for
Ah.
pragmatic programmers, and that's taking longer than expected. But I know that you've never heard me say that before, you know. So
What? A
we'll bring
book
that up. Yeah. Now,
running behind the schedule? No way.
if you follow my newsletter now, I have that newsletter. I didn't put a link to that in there. The newsletter link is kenkousen.substack.com. So I switched over to that Substack platform. And I remember I
Mhm.
guilted you into subscribing last year on the tiny letter one.
I did, and I keep reading it. Yes.
You actually read it? I don't assume anybody reads it. I assume they get it. Although last week, a couple people
Uh,
didn't get it. So I had to put in a special, here's what you do if you didn't get it kind of thing. But at
yeah,
any
no,
rate, I'll
but
talk
so
about the upcoming books
yeah,
there and stuff. So,
yeah,
okay. I
and
think
of
that's,
course you know exactly who read it because you have the analytics.
oh, no, no, I just get total numbers. And it's not a paid
Ah, okay.
subscription. I think it's all free. I just see how many opens and how many clicked on a link. And I'm like, I don't really care because I'm not trying to make any money off of this. I mean, I'm just writing basically 1,000 words a week on this silly thing that could probably better be spent on the book, but so be it.
No, I mean, I personally like your newsletter because it's very cozy.
Cozy. There's a good word.
It's Yeah, because it's easygoing. It's
Well,
like family style.
yeah.
It's This is what I like about it.
Well, here's what's going to happen at DevNexus. We got to get a picture, okay? Because I'm really bad at
Yep.
taking pictures. But we'll get a picture together, and I will add it to the newsletter. So there you
Oh my
go.
god!
Yeah,
Now
so you
I'm
can wear
flattered.
your silly hat and everything, your top hat.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Of
right.
course. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
And
anything.
since we are doing the DevOps speakeasy, it will be not only the head. It will be the whole thing, the whole like steampunk thing.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about? Anything you got coming up in your life? That you want to mention?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see a lot to see you and a lot of you, the audience, all five of you, in Dev Nexus, and
But you're organizing Swamp Up these days, right?
yes, and we're working on Swamp Up, which is June. Um, and the CFP just got closed last week. We are looking at the submissions. Should be a nice conference.
Oh, good.
Should be very very interesting. So if you have some JFrog in your life, working with our tools and products, and can get excuse to get to Swamp Up and hang out in a cool conference, that might be a good plan.
Okay. Well, good to see you after all this time. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while. It's been a
Let's
while.
not make
Absolutely.
it this long again. We're still waiting for Groovy 3 to drop. We definitely have to have a podcast when that occurs. And I'm trying to get a hold of Paul King to see if we can get him in there. And again, I'd love to get Simon to appear on the podcast at some point. I mean, why not, right? So let's see
Yeah.
if we could do that before a Greach or maybe Great Conf, or well, definitely before Great Conf, but certainly maybe even before Greach if we can do it.
And we for sure need Dr. Polkin to speak
Oh yeah.
about the Groovy 3, right? To speak
Yeah,
about the
the
release.
challenge there is, of course, he's down under unless he's traveling, and then it'd be very hard. It's just hard to work out the time zones. By the way, I'm going to be going to Australia in October. Do you know that GIDS conference, the Great Indian Developer Summit? Well, they've
Yes.
changed it to just Developer Summit or whatever, and I'll be going there in April in Bangalore, and it turns out I'll be going to Sydney/Melbourne in October as well.
Yeah. So we will
Those
be
are
there in
totally.
different times because I'm going there in April and then once again in August.
Oh, really? I've never been. So you're gonna wind up with like really good frequent flyer mile status there.
That's no complaints there. I mean,
All right.
it's a lot of travel. It's fine.
We've definitely used up our time. Thank you so much for coming again. Thank you all who are listening to this, and we'll try not to make it quite so long next time.
Well, if actually by our standards, it's just fine. We are way under an hour. We are on 42 minutes.
Yeah,
So
well, that's
we're
not
good.
a bad thing. People got stuff to do. They listen to this, they can listen to something else now. We are not monetizing this. We don't have all these ads we have to stuff in here. Although if somebody wants to go ahead and I mean, we have a remarkably low threshold for selling out, right?
Yes,
It would not
absolutely.
take much,
No,
for us to
not
go,
at all.
sure, we'll read your ad on the air. I don't care what it's for, absolutely. So
Yeah,
let's see, maybe saying that will encourage somebody to decide, no, that seems, if somebody actually gave us money, I'd probably just turn around and give it to that open collective to Groovy or,
exactly,
but
exactly.
okay, so be it.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
In fact, if they want to make a contribution there in our name, we'll do that. So
Yeah,
this
we
is
can do it.
getting,
It works. It works anyway. Anyway, it turned around. There are also Groovy Ladies, which is also a good cause to donate. There are a lot of stuff that you can do with your money better than giving it to us.
yeah, exactly. And we'll see what we can do. A quick reminder that there's the nice Slack channel for the Groovy community as well. Maybe this time we'll even remember to put a link to the podcast and the Groovy podcast channel on the Groovy Slack.
Oh,
But otherwise, this one will just be short and sweet, and let's do this again in a few weeks.
thank you. See you all.
Take
Bye
care.
bye, Ken.
Bye bye.
And